Now, Aubrey, you do have the changing demographics, for example, in Britain, really not being able to make a difference because, in fact, if they had come out in larger numbers,
then they would have.
We could have a different ballgame here.
Absolutely. I think youth vote is a determining factor in many elections, right? In the U.S. election in particular, turnout among youth is something we look for, especially in our coming election. The question is how many young people are going to turn out and vote. And then also in African elections, given that African demographics skew young, the question is how will the youth vote turn? And that really is what will decide the future leaders.
It is very interesting that you mentioned or you made reference to our upcoming elections here. What kind of lessons, in fact, could be learned from the just ended referendum in Britain?
Well, I think the key lesson is to not take any outcome for granted, that there really is a potential for a Trump victory, for example, which in many ways has been correlated with a Brexit type-like vote. So I think that the cities, you know, Washington, New York, LA, Chicago, should not take for granted that that people will vote, quote unquote, rationally, and not look to a candidate like Trump that expresses a lot of the anger that people like Boris Johnson also capitalized on for the Brexit debates.
Some people, in fact, have been suggesting, and some of these are pundits, that what you had in Britain really was a sort of coalition of the Bernie Sanders constituency and that of Trump rolled into one.
Yeah, I think because those candidates in this country tend to embody the anger that people feel about economic dislocation, the fear they have about immigration. Some of the same topics that we are hearing in our own debates were the same discussed in the Brexit debates. And so I don't think it's a coincidence that 50% of Bernie voters say that if they don't vote for Bernie, they're going to vote for Trump. So to me, that shows that they're not necessarily as focused on the political agenda piece, but more the emotional piece of being angry with the system, anti-establishment, looking for a change, a radical one. And those elements proved victorious in the UK situation. So the question is, now that we look at ours coming November, how can we refocus efforts and not rule out any potential outcome?